Today, we're diving into one of the most brilliant and most secret stories in all of modern warfare. It's the incredible history of the Code Talkers, men whose native languages became a powerful weapon that the enemy literally could not defeat. So, let me ask you something. Picture this. You're on the front lines, chaos all around you. You need to send critical messages, troop movements, artillery coordinates. But here's the thing. You know the enemy is listening to every single word. Any code you use, they can eventually break. So what do? Well, the solution turned out to be both beautifully simple and impossibly complex. It wasn't a fancy machine or some new mathematical formula. It was a human language, wielded by a truly unique group of soldiers. And get this, their code is the only spoken military code in modern history to have never, ever been deciphered. And you want to talk about performance? The encryption machines they had back then took a full 30 minutes to encode and decode a single message. A code talker? They could do it in just 20 seconds. 20! In the middle of a battle, that's not just an advantage, that's the difference between winning and losing, between life and death. All right, so let's get into it. Who were these remarkable individuals? So the term code talker itself, right? That was actually coined by the U.S. Marine Corps. And in World War II, somewhere between 400 and 500 Native Americans served in this role just in the Marines. And here's the really powerful part. They were turning their cultural heritage, languages the government had literally tried to suppress, into an unbreakable military asset.
But this whole idea, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere in World War II. Nope. To really get the origin story, we've got to rewind the clock all the way back to the battlefields of the Great War.
The story goes like this. There's a U.S. Army captain named Lawrence, and he overhears two of his soldiers just chatting away in their native Choctaw. And you could just imagine the light bulb going off over his head. He realizes, hey, if I can't understand them, there is no way the Germans can. And just like that, Choctaw soldiers were on the line, transmitting critical messages, and the tide of that battle turned in less than 24 hours. Now, it wasn't just the Choctaw. Soldiers from other tribes like the Cherokee were doing this too. And here's where it gets wild. German intelligence knew about this tactic. So before World War II, they actually sent a team of anthropologists to America to try and learn these native languages. But it was a total failure. The task was just impossible. There were too many languages, too many dialects, each with its own incredible complexity. They just gave up. So, this early success, combined with the enemy's complete failure to crack it, really set the stage for the most famous Code Talker program of all. By World War II, the U.S. military knew it had something special, and that's when the Navajo language became its ultimate secret weapon. The idea was brought to the Marines by a man named Philip Johnston. He was a Navajo, but he was a WWY vet who grew up on the Navajo reservation, so he knew the language. He knew it was unwritten and that its tones and grammar made it nearly impossible for outsiders to learn. I mean, think about this. At the time, fewer than 30 non-Navajo people in the entire world could understand it. But here's the crucial part. It wasn't just about speaking Navajo. The first 29 recruits, known as the First 29, created this brilliant, multi-layered code. First, they assigned Navajo words to each letter of the English alphabet. But then, they added a second, genius layer, a whole new coded vocabulary from military terms. And maybe the most incredible part of all, the entire system, hundreds of terms, was never written down in the field. It was all committed to memory. And the ingenuity was just remarkable. A submarine became Beshlo, or ironfish. A bomber was Jishuishual, which is the word for a buzzard. A tank was a Chedagahai, or turtle. And my personal favorite, their term for Adolf Hitler was B-Yul-D-E, which literally translates to crazy white man. Perfect, right? And this is where that code met the pure chaos of battle. In every single major Marine engagement in the Pacific from 1942 to 1945, these men were right there, on the front lines, relaying messages under constant fire, with unbelievable speed and perfect accuracy. And their impact? It was absolutely decisive. This quote from Major Howard Connor, it says it all. During the first 48 hours of the Battle of Iwo Jima, just 6 Navajo code talkers worked around the clock, sending and receiving over 800 messages, without a single error. Connor was crystal clear. Without them, the island would not have been captured. But while the Navajo story is the most famous one, and for good reason, it is so important to know that they were not alone. This secret weapon was deployed all across the globe. You had Comanche code talkers landing with the troops on D-Day in Europe. Meskwakie's soldiers were using their language in the North African campaign. Mohawk soldiers operated right alongside the Navajo in the Pacific. The Canadian military even used Cree speakers. All told, soldiers from at least 33 different tribes contributed their unique languages to the Allied war effort. So yeah, from the European theater with Comanche soldiers to the Pacific with the Navajo Marines, this was a truly global strategy. It was a widespread, deliberate use of indigenous languages on every major front of the war. But after the war, their story wasn't told. In fact, it was the opposite. It was all classified as top secret, and the men who had saved countless lives were sworn to total silence. For more than 2 decades, their contributions remained a secret. It wasn't until 1968 that the program was finally declassified. Can you imagine that? For 23 years, these veterans couldn't tell their families, their friends, or their own communities about the crucial role they played in winning the war. Recognition came slowly, but it did come. In 1982, President Reagan created National Navajo Code Talkers Day. In the year 2000, the original 29 Navajo finally received the Congressional Gold Medal. And it wasn't until 2008 that the Code Talkers Recognition Act was passed to formally honor the service of members from all those other tribes, too. This is Thomas H. Begay, one of the very last surviving Navajo Code Talkers. These men carried their secret and their service with such humility and pride for a lifetime. Their legacy is just this powerful reminder of how unique cultural knowledge can become a nation's greatest strength. So the story of the Code Talkers was hidden for decades. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we celebrate these heroes who are finally recognized, you have to ask, what other incredible stories, what other unsung heroes are still waiting out there in the shadows of history to be told?